Or what was your feeling about co-ops as corporations?
If a co-op is transporting coal through Bellingham, then they're violating the ordinance.
Well, I mean, the Bellingham Bill of Rights refers to corporations beyond the coal issue.
If you read it carefully, it really doesn't. Sure. The point at which corporations come into the ordinance is in the section on, let's see, where are we here? Here. What is banned is the transportation of coal through Bellingham, and then it talks about corporate violators. That's where it comes, the concept of corporations comes into the ordinance. So if you're a corporation and you're transporting coal, then you don't have constitutional rights. You can't invoke state or federal preemption, and permits don't have force. That's how it comes about.
Next question. Ellen, did you want another response to the question?
I mean, I can take 15 seconds.
So, I mean, is this going to be the pattern?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll allow
wait
you
till the
to
next question.
I'll allow you to respond as well. If somebody asks a question, you know.
Sure. Again, I'm just trying to provide facts here. So I guess your question was, what is a corporation? Is that?
Well, it said some co-ops are corporations.
Okay,
And
so.
when I looked at this framework, I didn't understand whether.
Okay, so section 2 of the ordinance has definitions. C is corporations. It says, for the purpose of this ordinance shall include any corporation, limited partnership, limited liability partnership, business trust, or limited liability company organized for profit under the laws of any state or the United States.
So not-for-profit is not included in that.
Oh, no. Or other for-profit entity that possesses state-conferred limited liability attributes of owners, directors, officers, and managers. So it seems to be targeted at only for-profit.
Okay. Very good. Next question. Go ahead, stand up, please.
I'm Susan Kaplan. I'm a member of the club. I'm also a retired math prof. What if you're banning all coal? I don't know if any local businesses use coal to do anything right now. Does this thing ban all coal whatsoever in the city? Asking what
It bans the transportation of coal through Bellingham.
But not the use.
It doesn't explicitly ban that, no. But you'd have to transport it, I suppose, in order to burn it.
Thank you.
Other comment? Dick?
Dick Down, got a question for you. 40% of our electricity in the United States comes from coal. Why isn't your energy, if coal is so bad, being addressed to the use of coal in the United States versus thousands of miles away, which is really what your intent is?
Well, I believe many people are already addressing the use of coal for power generation in the United States. And our ordinance is evenly divided, I would say, between trying to prevent the specific harm of this coal project, which, as you say, will produce the burning of coal thousands of miles away, somewhere in Asia, and thereby increase the conditions which are producing that map that I showed as the first slide. I mean, the burning of the coal in Asia will produce as much harm in respect of global warming as if we burned it here in Bellingham.
But if it's so bad, why aren't you putting, it is another group doing it? Why, I just don't understand the focus on this thing.
Okay, so our ordinance is evenly divided, I would say, in its focus between the specific threat of the coal project and the general problem of corporate power. Corporate power in the sense that I expressed when we first started. And the power of corporations to decide what happens in the life of communities such as Bellingham, rather than the people of Bellingham. And I want I'm going to take this opportunity, if I may, to address one of the things that Paul said, when he said that we have self-government. Actually, in Washington State, and I believe this is true elsewhere in the United States, local governments, local elected officials are not allowed to represent the interests of the people of the communities from which they are elected in certain circumstances. And we're seeing this right now in relation to the coal project at Cherry Point. I'm sure everybody in this room knows that the county council is not allowed at this point to take comment from the people of Whatcom County. It's not allowed, because they're sitting in a quasi-judicial capacity when the permit comes up. And all they're allowed to do in relation to that permit is apply state law. They are not allowed to consider the interests of the people of Whatcom County or the desires of the people of Whatcom County. So we don't have, in a fundamental sense, self-government at the local level.
Thank you. Chris is next. Chris?
And this question is addressed to Stoney.
Talk loud.
Stoney, you said that the CELDF is guaranteed that they're going to represent you in lawsuits. But what I'm asking you is, I am a corporation, a for-profit corporation. My family has had a company in Whatcom County since 1954. I do business with other for-profit corporations. When your Community Bill of Rights, should it be enacted, moves those people out of this area because their contract will no longer be lawful in a court of law, if somebody brings suit against them, who's going to represent me as I lose business? Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm a for-profit corporation. You're saying that for-profit corporations will not have standing if somebody in this community decides that that for-profit corporation is affecting an individual, an animal, plant life. They can bring suit against these, and these other for-profit corporations will probably, in all likelihood, choose not to do business in Whatcom County or the city of Bellingham because of this Bill of Rights. What are you doing to protect me as an individual and as a for-profit corporation from that type of economic devastation?
That's a very good question, and there is an answer. That map that I showed at the beginning is something that will be a catastrophe for your company as well as everybody in this room.
And where did you get that information from?
Okay. You can go to the Post-Carbon Institute. Yes.
Because this is a projected.
It's a projection. I have not personally done research to know whether that projection is accurate or not, but the people who did do the projection took their time, studied the thing carefully, and came up with that projection. It's part of the general science of understanding the effects of climate change. Okay, so number one, this ordinance protects you and your company by doing in a small way something that will reduce the risk of having what we saw on that map. Number two, I want to correct the slight misperception, which is that what CELDF will do is defend the city if the city is sued over the passage of this ordinance, and it will do that without charging legal fees. It'll also protect our organization, our campaign committee, if we're sued.
Okay, can we move on to the next question? Gentlemen?
David Barrett, local business member, real proud of it, lifelong member or resident of Bellingham. And I don't have a question as much as a clarification and hopefully some knowledge for you, Stoney. You just said that this chart you passed around was not factually substantiated by yourself. You relied on a group who worked numbers, put together charts just like anything else. I have some numbers for you. If this ordinance is based on global warming, then there are numbers there that you need to understand. That across the world, only 78 scientists substantiate and back global warming. In fact, we are in a global cooling. Over 39,000 scientists around the world oppose global warming. And those numbers are all over the internet. So if this ordinance is about global warming, how can it be, I mean, how can you come up with it? Because it's not global warming. It's about banning coal. It's not about an SSA terminal. It's about coal. So if it's about coal, as I am trying to show, why not make this ordinance one paragraph? Ban coal.
Would any of you like to respond to that question?
Sure. Just first of all, the Washington Policy Center has done a lot of work on the question of global warming. So I guess I'll leave it to you as a resource. www.washingtonpolicy.org. Our analyst, Todd Myers, has written a book called Eco-Facts that addresses a lot of this. His core idea is follow the facts, follow the science in order to get the actual facts. Regarding the broad, and so I think that the global warming issue goes beyond this ordinance. So this is a local ordinance, and that's a much bigger debate. Regarding the projections and the map that was put up, is that those are based on computer models, and scientists are adjusting the models about how moisture in the atmosphere and cloud cover and CO2 that's put into the atmosphere is changing over time. As an analyst, I'm somewhat skeptical of models, or at least I'm careful, because in the last 40 years there have been predictions about a new ice age, overpopulation, starvation, war, disease, and these predictions were made in the 60s and 70s that would happen by the end of the century, the year 2000. Now we're into a new phase of predictions, and I think we should definitely, take a look at them, but we need to be careful because so-called scientific predictions in the past have turned out to be wrong.
Either you want to say anything? Before I go to the next question.
Paul just referred to the, I think you were referring to the end of growth predictions.
There have just been a variety
Yeah.
of predictions dating from about 1960 forward.
Yeah, the Club of Rome produced a projection that we would reach peak oil about this time, and we are.
All right, let's go to the next question. I think Doug was next. Doug?
Hi, Doug Erickson. I like the concept of local control. I've been advocating for that for quite a while in Olympia. But my question is, if the city of Bellingham is able to exempt itself from federal rules and regulations on interstate commerce, could the city of Sumas then exempt itself from federal regulations and be able to harvest coal out in Acme, for example, put it on the rail lines and send it to Sumas to build a coal turbine up there because they wanted to exempt themselves from federal laws, like Bellingham wants to exempt themselves from federal regulation?
So the distinction is what corporations are allowed to do. Okay? No, the distinction is what corporations are allowed to do. We're not talking about what individuals are allowed to do or not do, but corporations.
So an individual could transport coal. I'm still confused by the underlying premise. Can an individual transport coal in your idea, or only corporations prohibit it?
Only corporations, yeah.
All right, let's go to the back next. Sure.
I love political science, that's my field, so I could have this debate all day long about governance that Senator Erickson raises, but maybe I can just, the question seems to be, what does self-government mean? So now you can have different opinions about whether we should change the power of local government to be able to control what happens within the city borders. But I always return to first principles. So the 14th Amendment of the Constitution says, all Americans are citizens of the United States and citizens of the state wherein they reside. So the United States is made up of 50 democracies. When you get to units that are below that, you go to state ordinance, which creates the 39 counties and 280 townships. So, and therefore that's defined by state government. Now, I'm not saying that's the best way to go, maybe we would want to change it. But the courts have made it very clear that federal law preempts state law preempts county ordinances, and state law also preempts local ordinances. Now, we could change that priority, but that's the system we have now. And when I think of self-government, I think of I'm a citizen of Washington State, and I'm a citizen of the United States, and then that's how I exercise self-government.
Thank you. Next question, Lynn? Lynn?
There's two things. One of the messages is that this is about coal. Bellingham is mostly about coal, and that corporations can't transport coal through our community. However, you say this is then a movement that's going all over in 140 some communities. Do all 140 some of those communities have coal going through theirs? Is coal the issue in every city?
No, I'm glad you asked that question. So far as I know, this proposed ordinance for Bellingham would be the only one dealing with coal.
So what are you dealing with all the other cities?
In the other ones, the threatening corporate project has been a whole variety of things, ranging from the factory hog farms that Naomi mentioned, to mining the groundwater, to spreading toxic sewage sludge, to putting in a toxic waste incinerator. In Pittsburgh, the city of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, the issue was natural gas fracking. And the city council in Pittsburgh passed an ordinance very similar to ours that banned natural gas fracking.
Next question.
Well, can I just add another?
Sure.
You're right that this proposal has been debated around the country. In our own state, it was considered in the last 2 election cycles in Spokane, the Spokane Community Bill of Rights, and it was defeated both times.
No. I would like to clarify that the first time the numbers were 25% for. The last time it was 49.7% for. So yeah, it went down, but it doubled the people behind it, and they're going for it again.
Okay. Stand up and state your name and your question.
Kathy Bowenkamp. This is more of maybe a comment, because Bellingham is certainly not Spokane. We are much, much more liberal in our voting patterns than Spokane. And I guess my concern is, if this is the only thing that's going to hit the ballot for people to respond to, I think it's a good bet, if they're scared about coal trains, that they're going to go for this. And they're going to go for all the language in it because they don't have an option. And I just for consideration, if there's nothing else there for people to respond to, and this is it, you might want to think about laying something else on the table that does give them a voice, that says, we're concerned about the coal trains, how can we address it? Because if in a vacuum, this is what they're going to cling to. And I think that's why you're seeing the signatures. And when you say it's getting more popular, we're not Spokane, and we're Bellingham.
Do any of you want to respond to that, or should we go to the next question?
Yeah, I'm Dave Crumney, live in Bellingham. And a long, long time ago, I was an employee at Harris Corporation too. Don't hold that against me. What I would like to know, can you cite any scientific evidence that CO2 affects global change? And I don't mean projections. Science is observation. Is that not right, Doctor?
Would any of you like to address the discussion?
I was just sent an email yesterday, and I only have it on my cell phone, but it's a film that NASA took, a time-lapse film of the smoke going around the planet. And it shows that we're pretty, because we have our environmental laws, it's not so bad here at the start of the film, but it's a 23-second thing. And it just shows where the smoke goes, and it all comes right to us, and it is the CO2 in the atmosphere.
Has it affect climate change?
So that.
I don't know how to answer that question.
So this is,
Yeah.
right. So this is why, so it's a complicated